The dining hall floated in chaos. Tables drifted toward the ceiling while cadets grabbed onto their chairs and screamed. Food flew through the air in slow motion. A bowl of soup spun in lazy circles, spilling its contents in perfect spheres that hung suspended like tiny planets. Cadet Hyun watched from the doorway and grinned. His blue-gray skin rippled with amusement. All four of his arms crossed over his chest as he admired his work. The gravity controls had been so easy to hack. Too easy, really. Where was the challenge anymore? Cadet 13! The voice cut through the screaming like a blade. Hyun's grin faded. He turned slowly to face Commander Taeyang. The commander's face was dark with anger. His three eyes focused on Hyun with an intensity that would have frightened most cadets. But Hyun was not most cadets. Yes, Commander, Hyun asked, his voice innocent. My office now. The walk to the commander's office was short. Hyun had made this walk many times before. He knew every turn, every corridor, every crack in the metal walls. The Galactic Naval Academy station hung above Velcro's prime like a giant wheel, rotating slowly to create artificial gravity. Except in the dining hall, of course. Not anymore. Commander Taeyang's office was small and neat. Everything had its place. The commander sat behind his desk and stared at Hyun for a long moment. Hyun stared back. This is the 37th incident this cycle, Taeyang said quietly. 37 times you have disrupted Academy operations. 37 times you have endangered other cadets. 37 times you have shown complete disrespect for authority. Hyun said nothing. What could he say? It was all true. Your family's political connections have protected you until now, Taeyang continued. But even they have limits. This ends today. One more incident, Cadet 13. Just one more and you will be expelled. Do you understand? Yes, Commander. Hyun kept his voice flat and empty. Dismissed. Hyun left the office and walked back toward the cadet quarters. He passed other students in the hallways. Some moved away from him quickly. Others whispered and pointed. Cadet 13 was famous throughout the academy. Everyone knew his name, even if they used his number instead. In the shared quarters, his roommate Jiwon sat on his bunk reading a datapad. Jiwon was small for a Velcrosian, barely reaching Hyun's shoulder. He looked up as Hyun entered, then quickly looked back down. How bad was it? Jiwon asked softly. Final warning, Hyun said. He threw himself onto his own bunk. The metal frame creaked under his weight. One more incident and I'm out. Good, Jiwon muttered. What was that? Nothing. But Jiwon's face showed what he really thought. Hyun had made life difficult for his roommate too. The pranks, the late-night disturbances, the constant attention from commanders and instructors. Jiwon just wanted to study and graduate. Instead, he was stuck with the academy's worst troublemaker. Hyun closed his eyes. He should feel worried. He should feel concerned about his future. But he felt nothing except boredom. The academy was too easy. The rules were too simple. Everything was predictable and dull. Even the threat of expulsion felt hollow. The door chimed. Jiwon answered it. Another cadet stood in the hallway, a tall male named Minho. He came from one of the most prestigious military families on Velcros. His uniform was always perfect, his grades always the highest. Is 13 here? Minho asked. He never used Hyun's real name. What do you want? Hyun called from his bunk. Minho stepped inside. Did you hear the news? They're bringing a human to the academy. Hyun sat up. A human? An exchange program, Minho explained. Part of the new Terran Alliance. One of their military officers is coming here to train with us. Can you believe it? A human? He said the word like it tasted bad. Hyun's interest sparked for the first time in weeks. Humans. He had heard of them, of course. Everyone had. The new species that had just achieved faster-than-light travel. The primitive bipeds from a backwater planet called Earth. They had no extra limbs, no natural armor, no impressive size or strength. Just 2 arms, 2 legs, and soft pink or brown skin. When? Hyun asked. 3 days, Minho said. The commanders are making a big deal about it. Cultural exchange, building bridges, all that nonsense. He sneered. As if we need to learn anything from humans. After Minho left, Hyun lay back on his bunk and smiled. A human. Fresh meat. Someone new to prank. Someone who wouldn't know his reputation. Someone who probably didn't even understand Velcrosian technology or customs. The possibilities were endless. Don't, Jiwon said quietly. Don't what? Whatever you're thinking. Don't do it. You heard the commander. One more incident. I'm not planning anything, Hyun lied. His mind was already racing with ideas, simple things at first. Reprogram the human's door lock. Switch his food rations with something unpleasant. Maybe mess with his uniform or training equipment. Nothing too serious. Nothing that could get him expelled. Just enough to have some fun. The next 3 days crawled by slowly. The entire academy buzzed with talk about the human. Some cadets were curious. Others were dismissive. A few were actually excited about meeting someone from Earth. Hyun listened to all of it and gathered information. Humans were physically weak compared to most species. They had no natural weapons, no claws or fangs or venom. They came from a planet with heavy gravity, but not as heavy as Velcros. Their technology was centuries behind the galactic standard. They had only just figured out how to fold space and travel between stars. So why had the Galactic Council agreed to an alliance? Why invite them to train at the academy? Hyun didn't know and didn't care. All that mattered was that someone new was coming. Someone to relieve the boredom. On the day of arrival, Commander Taeyang gathered all the cadets in the main assembly hall. He gave a long speech about cooperation and understanding between species. He talked about the importance of the Terran Alliance and how this exchange program would benefit everyone. Hyun stopped listening after the first minute. Finally, Taeyang stepped aside. Cadets, I present Ensign Daehyun of the Terran Defense Force. The human walked onto the stage. Hyun studied him carefully. Daehyun was tall for a human, but average compared to Velcrosians. He had dark hair and dark eyes. His skin was a light brown color. He wore a simple gray uniform with minimal decorations. He carried a large duffel bag over one shoulder and a small carrier in his other hand. Thank you, Commander, Daehyun said. His voice was calm and steady. I'm honored to be here and look forward to learning from all of you. That was it. No grand speech, no boasting, no attempt to impress anyone. Daehyun simply bowed his head slightly and stepped back. The cadets murmured among themselves. Some seemed disappointed. They had expected something more impressive from humanity's representative. Hyun watched as Daehyun left the stage. The human moved with an easy confidence, not hurried but not slow either, just steady and deliberate. When Daehyun passed close to where Hyun sat, their eyes met for a brief moment. Daehyun's eyes were dark and deep. They seemed to look right through Hyun, seeing everything and judging nothing. Then the moment passed and Daehyun continued walking. Hyun felt something strange. A tiny flicker of something he hadn't felt in a long time. Was it worry? No, that was ridiculous. What did he have to worry about from a weak human? He pushed the feeling aside and smiled. Let the fun begin. In the carrier that Daehyun held, something shifted. Yellow eyes opened in the darkness and stared out through the mesh door. A low purr rumbled through the container, too quiet for anyone to hear. The human had arrived, and he had not come alone. Daehyun's quarters were in the same section as the other cadets. The room was standard size with a bunk, a desk, a storage locker, and a small bathroom. Nothing special. Nothing fancy. Just enough space for one person to live and study. Hyun waited exactly 1 day before starting his campaign. Let the human get settled first. Let him think everything was fine. Then strike. The first prank was simple. Hyun hacked into Daehyun's door lock and changed the access code. When Daehyun returned from morning training, his door wouldn't open. Hyun watched from down the corridor, hidden behind a maintenance panel. Daehyun stood in front of his door. He tried the code once, twice, 3 times. Then he stopped and looked at the control panel for a moment. Instead of calling for help or getting frustrated, Daehyun pulled a small tool from his belt and opened the panel's cover. His fingers moved quickly, pressing buttons in a sequence that Hyun didn't recognize. The door slid open. Daehyun stepped inside without any sign of anger or confusion. Just calm acceptance and problem-solving. Hyun frowned. That wasn't the reaction he wanted. The second prank was more elaborate. Hyun accessed the training simulation systems and modified Daehyun's next exercise. Instead of the standard navigation challenge, the simulation would throw impossible scenarios at him. Asteroids that moved too fast to avoid. Enemy ships that appeared from nowhere. System failures that couldn't be fixed. Hyun watched through the observation window as Daehyun entered the simulation pod. The exercise began. Asteroids came flying at the virtual ship. Daehyun didn't try to dodge them all. Instead, he flew through the gaps, taking minor damage but staying on course. Enemy ships appeared. Daehyun didn't fight them. He used the asteroids as cover and ran. Every time the simulation tried to trap him, Daehyun found a way around it. Not through superior skill or strength, through adaptation, through accepting that he couldn't win every fight and finding alternative solutions. When the simulation ended, Daehyun climbed out of the pod. He was sweating and breathing hard, but he was smiling. Commander Taeyang was waiting with a datapad. "Interesting approach, Ensign," Taeyang said. "Not standard procedure." "No, sir," Daehyun agreed. "But it worked." Indeed it did. Taeyang actually looked impressed. Dismissed, Hyun felt frustration building. The human wasn't reacting properly. Where was the anger? Where was the complaint to the commanders? Where was any reaction at all? That evening, Hyun saw Daehyun in the common room. Several other cadets had gathered around the human, curious about Earth and its people. Daehyun sat on one of the benches, answering questions patiently. "Is it true your planet has only one intelligent species?" a female cadet named Suji asked. "That's right," Daehyun said. "Humans are the only ones who developed language and tools." "How strange," Suji said. "On Velcros, we share our world with 3 other intelligent species. We have lots of animals, though," Daehyun added. "Many different kinds. Some very dangerous." "Dangerous?" Minho laughed. "What could be dangerous to a species with no natural weapons?" Daehyun smiled but didn't answer. Instead, he reached down and opened the carrier beside him. "I'd like you all to meet someone." A small creature emerged from the carrier. It was covered in black fur, had 4 legs, a long tail, and pointed ears. 2 yellow eyes looked out at the assembled cadets. The creature was maybe half the size of a Velcrosian arm. "This is Bomi," Daehyun said. "She's a cat." The cadets leaned forward to look. Jiwon reached out a hand carefully. Bomi sniffed his fingers, then allowed him to pet her head. She made a strange rumbling sound. "What is that noise?" Jiwon asked. "Purring," Daehyun explained. "It means she's content." "She's adorable," Suji said. "Is she a baby?" "No, she's fully grown. Cats are small predators from Earth." "Predator?" Minho scoffed. "That tiny thing?" "Sizes and everything," Daehyun said mildly. Hyun stood in the doorway watching, a pet. The human had brought a pet to a military academy. How ridiculous, how soft, how typical of a primitive species. Bomi's head turned. Her yellow eyes locked onto Hyun. She stared at him without blinking. Hyun stared back, refusing to look away first. But something about those eyes made him uncomfortable. They were too focused, too aware, like they could see things that shouldn't be visible. The moment stretched. Other cadets were talking and laughing, but Hyun only heard his own heartbeat. Bomi continued staring. Her pupils were wide black circles with thin rings of yellow around them. Her tail swished once, twice, then she looked away and Hyun could breathe again. "Can she do tricks?" Jiwon asked. "Cats don't really do tricks," Daehyun said. "They're not like dogs. They're more independent." "What's a dog?" "Another Earth animal. They're very loyal and follow commands. Cats are different. They do what they want." Hyun watched as Bomi jumped down from the bench and walked across the room. She moved with complete silence. Her paws didn't make any sound on the metal floor. She investigated corners and sniffed at walls, mapping out her new territory. Several cadets tried to follow her, but Bomi was faster than she looked. She would be in one spot, then suddenly appear somewhere else. She jumped onto high shelves that seemed impossible to reach. She squeezed through gaps that looked too small for her body. "How does she do that?" Suji asked, amazed. "Cats are very flexible," Daehyun explained. "Their skeletons are designed for climbing and hunting. They can fit through any space their head can fit through." Minho tried to grab Bomi as she walked past. She twisted away from his hand without any visible effort and gave him a look that clearly said, "Don't touch me." Minho pulled his hand back, looking embarrassed. Hyun left the common room feeling unsettled. He couldn't explain why. It was just a small animal. A pet. Completely harmless. And yet... That night, Hyun planned his next prank. Something bigger. Something that would finally get a reaction from the human. He would reprogram Daehyun's alarm to go off at random times. He would switch the hot and cold water in his shower. He would replace his uniform with one that was 3 sizes too small. But first he needed to get into Daehyun's room while the human was at evening training. Hyun waited until the corridors were quiet, then made his way to Daehyun's quarters. He used his hacking tools to override the lock. The door slid open. The room was neat and organized. The bunk was made with perfect corners. Books and data pads were arranged carefully on the desk. Everything had a place. Hyun stepped inside and started toward the storage locker. Then he heard it. A soft sound, barely audible. A breath of air moving through fur. He turned slowly. Bomi sat on top of the storage locker. Her yellow eyes glowed in the dim light of the room. She stared at Hyun without moving. Her tail was wrapped around her paws. She looked like a small statue, except statues didn't breathe and didn't watch with such intensity. Shoo, Hyun said quietly. Go away. Bomi didn't move. I'm not afraid of you, Hyun said. But his voice wasn't as steady as he wanted it to be. The cat tilted her head slightly. One ear twitched. The gesture somehow felt like mockery, like she knew exactly why Hyun was here and found it amusing. Hyun took a step forward. Bomi's pupils dilated, turning her eyes almost completely black. Her body tensed, muscles coiling under her fur. She looked ready to spring. For reasons he couldn't explain, Hyun took a step back instead. Then another. Then he turned and left the room, the door sliding shut behind him. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. Why? It was just a small animal. Just a pet. There was nothing to fear. But Hyun had seen something in those eyes. Something that remembered hunting. Something that remembered when prey ran and predators chased. Something old and patient and utterly without mercy. He went back to his own quarters and lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Ji-won was already asleep, snoring softly. The station hummed around them with the sound of air circulation and power systems. Hyun closed his eyes, but he kept seeing those yellow eyes staring at him from the darkness. Watching, waiting, knowing. Tomorrow, he told himself. Tomorrow he would try again. The human was nothing special. The cat was just a pet. Tomorrow. But deep down, in a part of himself he didn't want to acknowledge, Hyun wondered if he had just made a terrible mistake. Hyun didn't give up. Fear was temporary. Embarrassment was forever. If word got out that he had been scared away by a small pet, his reputation would be destroyed. So he continued his pranks, but now he avoided Daehyun's quarters. He focused on public spaces and training areas. He reprogrammed the shower controls in the communal bathroom so cold water came out when Daehyun selected hot. Daehyun just took a cold shower without complaint. Hyun switched Daehyun's training uniform with one covered in ridiculous patches and badges. Daehyun wore it anyway, seeming not to care. Hyun changed the language settings on Daehyun's datapad to Ancient Velcrosian. Daehyun learned enough Ancient Velcrosian to navigate the menus and change it back. Every prank failed. Every attempt to embarrass or frustrate the human went nowhere. Daehyun simply adapted and moved on, like water flowing around rocks. But worse than the failed pranks was the cat. Bomi was everywhere. Hyun would turn a corner and find her sitting in the middle of the corridor, staring at him. He would enter the training room and see her perched on top of the equipment racks. He would go to the dining hall and spot her underneath one of the tables. The other cadets loved her. They would stop to pet her or offer her treats. Bomi accepted attention when she wanted it and ignored people when she didn't. She had quickly established herself as the station's unofficial mascot, but with Hyun, she was different. She never let him touch her. She never came near him except to watch, always watching. Always those yellow eyes following his movements. You're being paranoid, Ji-won said one evening. She's just a cat. She's always there, Hyun muttered. Every time I turn around, she's watching me. Maybe she likes you. That's not what it feels like. Hyun had started researching Earth animals. He used the Academy's database to find information about cats. What he learned did not comfort him. Cats were ambush predators. They hunted by stalking their prey silently, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They had excellent night vision, sharp claws, and reflexes faster than almost any other Earth creature. Despite being domesticated for thousands of years, they retained all their hunting instincts. Humans had taken these small killers and invited them into their homes. They fed them, played with them, loved them, and the cats stayed not because they were tamed but because they chose to. The idea disturbed Hyun more than he wanted to admit. Training exercises continued. Daehyun participated in everything, working alongside the Velcrosian cadets. He wasn't the strongest or the fastest. His reaction time was good but not exceptional. But he never quit. When he fell behind, he kept going. When exercises left him exhausted, he rested briefly and then pushed forward again. Minho noticed it too. One day in the training hall, he confronted Daehyun directly. I want to challenge you, Minho said. Combat simulation. One-on-one. Daehyun looked at him calmly. Why? Because I want to see what humans are really capable of. Everyone talks about the Terran Alliance like you're something special. I want proof. Commander Taeyang overheard and nodded. An excellent idea. Combat simulations are good training for both of you. Tomorrow morning, full tactical scenario. The next day, half the academy came to watch. Combat simulations were popular among the cadets. Two opponents entered virtual environments and fought using simulated weapons and equipment. No real danger, but all the excitement. Hyun stood in the observation area with the other cadets. He told himself he was only watching to gather information, to find weaknesses he could exploit later. It had nothing to do with curiosity about what the human could do. Minho entered his pod first, confident and ready. Daehyun followed, his expression neutral. Bomi sat near Hyun, her tail wrapped around her paws. She had somehow appeared without him noticing. The simulation began. The scenario was a damaged space station. Minho and Daehyun spawned on opposite sides. The objective was simple: eliminate the opponent or complete 3 tactical objectives before they did. Minho charged forward immediately. He was skilled and well-trained, moving through the virtual corridors with precision. He cleared rooms efficiently, his simulated weapon ready. Daehyun moved differently, slower, more careful. He checked every corner, every shadow. He avoided direct confrontation, taking paths that Minho had already cleared. "He's running," one cadet said with contempt. "No," Suji said quietly. "He's thinking." Minho completed the first objective. Then the second. The cadets cheered. It was obvious who would win. But then Daehyun did something unexpected. He stopped running. Instead, he positioned himself in a narrow corridor between Minho and the third objective. He set up a defensive position using environmental cover. When Minho came charging around the corner, Daehyun was ready. The human didn't try to outshoot Minho. Instead, he threw a simulated grenade that filled the corridor with smoke. In the confusion, Daehyun used his environment. He climbed on pipes and ledges, attacking from unexpected angles. Minho was better trained. He was faster and stronger. But Daehyun was unpredictable. He didn't fight the way Velcrosians fought. He used tactics that made no sense according to standard training. The fight lasted 3 minutes. It ended when Daehyun dropped from above, landing on Minho's shoulders and using momentum to take him down. The simulation ended with both of them on the ground, but Daehyun's weapon was at Minho's head. The observation room was silent. Then Commander Taeyang started clapping. "Excellent work, both of you. Minho, your technique was flawless. Daehyun, your adaptability was impressive." Minho climbed out of his pod, his face dark. He had lost to the human, the primitive biped who shouldn't have stood a chance. Daehyun emerged from his pod, breathing hard. "Good match," he said to Minho, offering his hand. Minho stared at the hand for a moment, then turned and walked away without taking it. After that, things changed. Some cadets started treating Daehyun with more respect. They asked him questions about Earth combat techniques. They wanted to know how humans trained. Daehyun answered patiently, never boasting, never claiming superiority. Hyun watched it all and felt something ugly growing inside him. Jealousy? No, he wasn't jealous of the human. But he was losing his position as the Academy's most notable cadet. People were starting to forget about his pranks. They were more interested in the newcomer. He decided to escalate. One more big prank. Something that would remind everyone who Cadet 13 was. Something that would put the human in his place. He chose an upcoming examination. All cadets had to take the test to advance to the next training level. Hyun broke into the testing system and created fake evidence that Daehyun had accessed the questions beforehand. Cheating was grounds for immediate expulsion. Even a human with diplomatic protection would face consequences. Hyun planted the evidence carefully. It looked convincing. Digital footprints that led directly to Daehyun's terminal. Access logs that showed someone had viewed the test questions from his quarters. He felt satisfied as he finished. This would work. The human would be caught, disgraced, and sent back to Earth. Everything would return to normal. Hyun returned to his quarters late that night. Jiwon was already asleep. Hyun undressed and climbed into his bunk, feeling accomplished for the first time in weeks. He was almost asleep when he heard a sound, a soft thump of something landing on his desk. Hyun opened his eyes. Bomi sat on his desk, illuminated by the faint glow of his datapad. But something was different. The datapad screen was active, open, showing the very files Hyun had just created. The fake evidence of Daehyun's cheating. As Hyun watched in horror, Bomi lifted one paw and placed it on the datapad. Her claws extended, small and sharp. With deliberate precision, she scraped her claws across the screen. The files began to corrupt, delete, disappear. "No," Hyun whispered. He started to sit up. Bomi's head turned toward him. Her eyes caught the light, glowing like small lamps. She made a sound, not a purr, but something deeper. A warning. Hyun froze. The cat finished destroying the files, then jumped down from the desk. She walked to the door, which opened automatically. She paused in the doorway and looked back at Hyun one more time. Then she was gone, disappearing into the dark corridor. Hyun sat in his bunk shaking. It wasn't possible. Animals couldn't use computers. They couldn't understand data files or know which ones to delete. They certainly couldn't navigate through a secured system. But he had seen it. He had watched it happen. Worse, he understood what it meant. Bomi knew what he had done. She had stopped him. And if she could do that, what else could she do? That night, Hyun didn't sleep. He lay in his bunk and stared at the ceiling, listening to every small sound, waiting for the soft pad of paws on metal, waiting for yellow eyes to appear in the darkness. The hunter and the hunted. But Hyun was beginning to realize which role he had been cast in. Hyun's performance began to slip. In combat simulations, his scores dropped. In academic tests, he made careless mistakes. During physical training, he was distracted and unfocused. Commander Tae-yang noticed. Cadet 13, report to medical. You look unwell. Hyun went to medical. The doctors found nothing wrong with him physically. They asked about his sleep. Hyun lied and said he was sleeping fine. How could he explain the truth? That he was afraid of a small earth animal? That he jumped at shadows and spent his nights waiting for yellow eyes to appear? Jiwon noticed too. Are you okay? He asked one morning. I'm fine, Hyun snapped. You don't look fine. You look like you haven't slept in days. Mind your own business. Jiwon fell silent, but his concern was obvious. Even he, who had suffered through years of Hyun's pranks, was worried. The worst part was that Bomi hadn't done anything. She hadn't attacked him. Hadn't scratched or bitten. She just watched. Always watching. Appearing in places she shouldn't be able to reach. Moving through the station like she owned it. One afternoon, Suji gave a presentation to the cadets. She had been studying Earth biology and wanted to share her findings. Hyun attended, telling himself he wasn't interested. But he listened to every word. Earth is a fascinating planet, Suji began. It has extreme diversity of life. But what makes it really interesting is the predator-to-prey ratio. Earth has more predators per square kilometer than almost any documented planet. She displayed images on the main screen. Creatures with teeth and claws and scales. Some were massive. Others were small but deadly. Humans evolved in this environment, Suji continued. They aren't the strongest predator. They aren't the fastest. But they're the smartest. They're also what we call persistence hunters. They chase their prey for hours, sometimes days, until the prey is too exhausted to run anymore. Hyun felt cold. Persistence hunting. Like how Daehyun never gave up during training. Like how he adapted to every prank without complaint. But here's what I find most interesting, Suji said. Humans domesticated predators. Dogs, which are pack hunters. And cats, which are ambush predators. She displayed an image of Bomi. Several cadets smiled and pointed. Cats are fascinating, Suji said. They're small, but they're perfect hunters. Their skeleton is flexible. They can rotate their ears independently to track sound. Their eyes are designed for low light. They can see movement that most species would miss. And they're patient. A cat can wait for hours without moving, watching its prey, waiting for the right moment. Hyun's hands were shaking. He gripped the edge of his seat. The interesting thing is that cats were never truly domesticated, Suji explained. Not like dogs. Dogs were bred by humans to be loyal and obedient. Cats domesticated themselves. They chose to live with humans because it benefited them. They still retain all their hunting instincts. Even today, a house cat is just a few generations away from being a wild predator. She paused, looking at her notes. Humans love cats even though cats are independent and sometimes aggressive. They appreciate the cat's predatory nature, rather than trying to eliminate it. I think this tells us something important about humans. They don't fear predators. They respect them. They even befriend them. After the presentation, Hyun sat alone in the empty room. Suji's words echoed in his mind. Humans befriend predators. They are predators themselves. He had been thinking of Daehyun as weak, as primitive. But what if that was wrong? What if humans were dangerous in ways that didn't show on the surface? The academy conducted field exercises once a month. Cadets went to the zero-gravity training module on the far side of the station. It was used to simulate emergency repairs in space. Dangerous but carefully monitored, Hyun suited up with the others. He went through the safety checks automatically, his mind elsewhere. The module was a complex maze of corridors and chambers, all without gravity. Magnetic boots kept them anchored when needed. The exercise began. Cadets split into teams to complete various repair tasks. Hyun worked alone. Preferring not to deal with partners who would slow him down, he made his way through the maze, completing objectives quickly. He was halfway through his final task when he noticed the problem. His suit's oxygen gauge was dropping too fast. He checked the seals. Everything looked fine, but the numbers didn't lie. He had maybe 10 minutes of air left. Not nearly enough time to complete the exercise and return to the airlock. Hyun activated his communicator. "This is Cadet 13. I have a suit malfunction. Requesting immediate extraction." Static answered him. His communicator was dead. Panic rose in his throat. He tried to stay calm, think logically, follow emergency procedures. He began making his way back toward the main airlock. But in zero gravity without landmarks, it was easy to get turned around. The corridors all looked the same. 5 minutes of air left. Hyun's heart pounded. His breathing got faster, which only used up his oxygen quicker. He forced himself to slow down, to think. But his thoughts were scattered and chaotic. He pulled himself through another corridor and suddenly felt dizzy. The oxygen was getting thin. His movements became clumsy. He bounced off a wall and couldn't correct his trajectory properly. 3 minutes. His vision started to blur at the edges. This was it. He was going to die here because of a stupid equipment malfunction during a routine exercise. All because he had been too distracted to properly check his gear. 2 minutes. Hyun's eyes started to close. He felt strangely peaceful. Maybe dying wasn't so bad. At least he wouldn't have to face those yellow eyes anymore. Then someone grabbed him. Strong hands pulled him through the maze of corridors with confidence and speed. Hyun's fading vision registered a gray suit. Human proportions. Daehyun. The human moved through zero gravity like he had been born in it. He pulled Hyun along, navigating the maze without hesitation. How did he know where to go? They all looked the same. They reached an emergency station. Daehyun quickly connected an emergency oxygen line to Hyun's suit. Fresh air flooded in. Hyun gasped and coughed, his lungs burning. "Breathe slowly," Daehyun said. His voice was calm. "You're safe now." Hyun's vision cleared. He looked at Daehyun, who was checking the oxygen flow and monitoring Hyun's vital signs through his suit's display. "How?" Hyun's voice was hoarse.
"How did you find me?"
"Bomi," Daehyun said simply. Hyun turned his head. Floating near them in zero gravity was a small black shape. Bomi had somehow followed them into the training module. She wore a tiny suit specially made for her, complete with a clear helmet that let her yellow eyes shine through. She knew something was wrong, Daehyun explained. "She kept scratching at the airlock until I followed her. Then she led me to you, a cat. A small Earth predator had saved his life." Commander Taeyang's voice came through the working communicator. "Ensign Daehyun, report. We detected an emergency beacon from your location." "Cadet 13's suit malfunctioned," Daehyun reported. "He's stable now but needs medical attention." "Extraction team on the way." "Good work, Ensign." They waited in silence. Bomi floated over to Hyun and placed her small paws on his helmet. Through the clear material, her eyes looked into his. But this time, Hyun didn't see threat. He saw something else. Understanding, maybe. Or perhaps just a cat being a cat. When the extraction team arrived, they found Hyun's suit had been sabotaged. Someone had tampered with the oxygen regulator and the communicator. The evidence pointed to a delayed malfunction, set to trigger mid-exercise. "Who would do this?" Commander Taeyang demanded. Hyun knew. He had done it to himself, one of his earlier attempts to sabotage Daehyun's equipment. But he had grabbed the wrong suit from storage. His own suit. His own trap had nearly killed him. In the medical bay, Hyun lay in a bed and stared at the ceiling. Daehyun came to visit with Bomi on his shoulder. "How are you feeling?" Daehyun asked. "I'm alive," Hyun said. "Because of you. And your cat." Daehyun sat down beside the bed. "I know what you've been doing," he said quietly. "The pranks. The sabotage. All of it." Hyun said nothing. What could he say? "I didn't report it because I understood," Daehyun continued. "You were bored. You wanted attention. You didn't think there would be real consequences." "Why did you save me?" Hyun asked. "After everything I did?" "Because that's what we do," Daehyun said simply. "Humans, I mean. We help each other. Even when it's hard. Even when the person doesn't deserve it." Bomi jumped down from Daehyun's shoulder and walked across Hyun's bed. She sat on his chest and began purring. The vibration was soothing. "She wasn't trying to scare you," Daehyun said. She was trying to protect both of us. Cats understand boundaries. When someone crosses a line, they give warnings. That's what she was doing, warning you before you hurt yourself or someone else. Hyun reached up slowly and touched Bomi's head. She allowed it, her purr growing louder. I'm sorry, Hyun whispered. For everything. I know, Daehyun said. Now you have to decide what to do next. Commander Taeyang will investigate the sabotage. When he traces it back to you, you'll face consequences. Hyun nodded. He knew. And for the first time in his life, he was ready to accept them. Commander Taeyang's investigation took 3 days. 3 days during which Hyun stayed in medical, recovering from oxygen deprivation. 3 days during which he thought about his choices and his future. When he was released from medical, Taeyang summoned him immediately. Hyun walked to the commander's office with Bomi following behind him. The cat had barely left his side since the accident. She walked beside him through the corridors like a small shadow. Sit, Taeyang said. Hyun sat. Bomi jumped onto his lap and settled there, purring softly. Taeyang placed a data pad on the desk. We traced the sabotage. The oxygen regulator was tampered with 3 weeks ago, the same day you accessed the equipment storage room without authorization. Hyun said nothing. There was nothing to say. We also found evidence of multiple other incidents, door locks reprogrammed, training simulations altered, personal belongings switched, all traced back to your terminal. Taeyang's 3 eyes fixed on Hyun. Do you deny any of this? No, Commander. Why? Hyun thought about his answer carefully. Because I was bored. Because I wanted attention. Because I thought I was untouchable. He paused. I was wrong. About everything. Taeyang leaned back in his chair. Your family has already contacted me. They want to exercise their political influence to protect you. Again. No, Hyun said quickly. Please, I don't want that. You don't want protection? I want to face the consequences of my actions. Whatever they are. Taeyang studied him for a long moment. Why the change? Because someone saved my life when I didn't deserve it, Hyun said. Because I finally understand what I was doing. And because I'm tired of being Cadet 13, the Troublemaker. I want to be Hyun again. Bomi purred louder, kneading her paws against Hyun's leg. I could expel you, Taeyang said. You've violated numerous regulations. You've endangered other cadets. You've damaged Academy property. Expulsion would be justified. I understand. However, Taeyang picked up another data pad. Ensign Daehyun has submitted a formal request. He's asking that you be given a chance at redemption instead of punishment. He's volunteered to serve as your mentor if you agree to a probationary program. Hyun looked up surprised. He did? Yes, against my better judgment, I'm willing to consider it. But understand this, Cadet Hyun. Taeyang used his real name for the first time in years. This is your last chance. Not because of your family. Because one person believes you can change. If you accept this, you will work harder than you've ever worked. You will follow every rule. You will serve the Academy and your fellow cadets. Any failure, any slip, and you will be expelled immediately. Do you accept these terms? Hyun felt Bomi's warm weight in his lap. He thought about Daehyun's patience, his calm acceptance of every prank. He thought about being saved when he should have died. He thought about what kind of person he wanted to be. I accept, he said. The probationary program was brutal. Hyun woke at dawn for extra training sessions. He spent his evenings in remedial classes. He served in the dining hall, cleaned training equipment, and performed maintenance work throughout the station, all while keeping up with his regular academy duties. Daehyun was there through all of it, patient and steady. When Hyun struggled with a concept, Daehyun explained it differently. When Hyun felt overwhelmed, Daehyun reminded him why he was doing this. When Hyun wanted to give up, Daehyun simply said, "One more day. You can do one more day." Bomi continued to follow Hyun. At first, the other cadets found it strange. Why would the cat stay with Hyun instead of Daehyun? But gradually they understood. Bomi was still teaching, still watching, making sure Hyun stayed on the right path. Jiwon noticed the change. You're different, he said one night in their quarters. Better or worse? Hyun asked. Better, much better. You actually asked me about my day yesterday. You've never done that before. I'm sorry, Hyun said. For all the years of pranks and problems, I made your life difficult. Jiwon was quiet for a moment. Yes, you did. But you're trying to fix it now. That matters. Weeks passed. Then months. Hyun's scores improved. His reputation slowly began to change. Cadets who had feared or avoided him started treating him normally. Some even became friendly. Minho was the last to come around. One day in the training hall, he approached Hyun cautiously. I heard what happened, Minho said. The accident, the sabotage, all of it. Hyun braced himself for mockery or anger. I also heard you're doing the redemption program, Minho continued. That takes courage, more than I thought you had. I'm trying, Hyun said simply. Minho extended his hand. Maybe we could train together sometime. I could use a sparring partner who doesn't give up easily. Hyun stared at the offered hand, then took it. I'd like that. 6 months after the accident, final examinations approached. These tests would determine which cadets advanced to officer training. Hyun studied harder than he ever had in his life. Daehyun helped him prepare, quizzing him on tactics and regulations. The night before the exam, Hyun couldn't sleep. He was nervous. What if he failed? What if all this work had been for nothing? A soft weight landed on his chest. Bomi stood there looking at him with her yellow eyes. But now those eyes didn't frighten him. They comforted him. She lay down, purring against his chest, and Hyun felt himself relax. Thank you, he whispered to the cat. The exam was difficult but fair. Hyun worked through each section carefully, double-checking his answers. When it was over, he felt exhausted but satisfied. He had done his best. That would have to be enough. Results came a week later. Hyun passed with high marks. Not the highest in the class, but respectable. More importantly, Commander Taeyang removed his probationary status. You've earned your place here, Taeyang said. Cadet Hyun, you are restored to full status. Congratulations. Hyun wanted to cry but held it in. Thank you, Commander, for giving me a chance. Thank Ensign Daehyun. He's the one who believed in you. At the celebration that evening, cadets gathered in the common room. Music played. Food was shared. Everyone was relaxed and happy, glad to be done with exams. Hyun found Daehyun sitting in a corner with Bomi on his lap. He sat down beside them. Thank you, Hyun said, for everything, for saving my life, for mentoring me, for not giving up on me when everyone else had. You did the hard work, Daehyun said. I just pointed you in the right direction. Why? Hyun asked. Why help me at all? Daehyun was quiet for a moment, stroking Bomi's fur. Because where I come from, we believe people can change. We believe that one person's faith in another can make a difference. And because Bomi liked you, she liked me, she terrified me. Daehyun smiled. Cats are good judges of character. She knew you weren't really bad, just lost. She saw something in you worth protecting. Bomi jumped from Daehyun's lap to Hyun's, curling up comfortably. Hyun petted her gently, amazed at how far he had come. From fearing this small creature, to finding comfort in her presence. What will you do now? Hyun asked. Your exchange program is ending soon. Back to Earth, Daehyun said. Back to my regular duties. But I'll remember my time here, and all the people I met. Will you take Bomi with you? Of course. Where I go, she goes. Hyun felt a pang of sadness. He would miss the cat. Miss her presence. Miss the lessons she had taught without words. As if reading his thoughts, Daehyun said, You could visit Earth someday. See where we come from. Meet other cats. I'd like that, Hyun said. 1 year later, Hyun stood at the front of a classroom. He was now an instructor, teaching new cadets basic protocols and regulations. It was a junior position, but he was proud of it. He had earned it through hard work and dedication. A new group of cadets filed in. Young, nervous, eager, Hyun remembered being like them once. Except he had been arrogant instead of nervous. One cadet caught his attention. A young male who sat in the back, arms crossed, looking bored and contemptuous. Hyun recognized that expression. He had worn it himself. After class, Hyun approached the cadet. What's your name?
Cadet 47, the young male said dismissively.
I asked for your name, not your number. Daeho, why do you care? Because I used to be like you, Hyun said. Thought I was better than everyone. Thought rules didn't apply to me. Thought nothing could touch me. So, what happened? I met someone who taught me I was wrong. Someone who saved my life. And someone else who scared me into understanding what really matters. Daeho looked interested despite himself. Who? A human. And his cat. At that moment, a door opened behind them. A small black shape entered the room, moving with silent grace. Yellow eyes surveyed the space, then fixed on Daeho. What is that? Daeho asked nervously. Hyun smiled. That is Bomi. Well, Bomi the second, actually. The daughter of the cat I knew. Daehyun left her here as a gift before he returned to Earth. She helps me teach now. Bomi walked up to Daeho and stared at him. The young cadet pressed back against the wall. She won't hurt you, Hyun said. Unless you deserve it. She's here to teach the same lessons she taught me. Respect, discipline, understanding that actions have consequences. Daeho looked between Hyun and the cat. Is this a joke? No joke. Bomi is part of the academy now. She watches. She learns. And when someone needs teaching, she teaches. Hyun knelt beside the cat and scratched behind her ears. She purred, the sound filling the quiet room. I don't understand, Daeho said. You will, Hyun promised. Give it time. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll learn the lessons faster than I did. In his quarters that night, Hyun looked at the photo on his desk. Himself, Daehyun, and the original Bomi, taken on the day Daehyun left the academy. They were all smiling. Even the cat looked happy. Commander Taeyang had said something that day, something Hyun never forgot. The commander had watched Daehyun's ship depart and shook his head in wonder. Humanity's greatest strength isn't their endurance or intelligence, Taeyang had said. It's their ability to teach even the most stubborn beings to be better. And their cats? Those might be even more terrifying. Hyun had laughed at the time. Now he understood. The terror wasn't from threat or violence. It was from seeing yourself reflected in those yellow eyes and realizing you didn't like what you saw. It was from understanding that change was possible, but only if you chose it. Bomi II jumped onto the desk and bumped her head against Hyun's hand. He petted her, feeling grateful for everything that had happened. For the accident that almost killed him. For the human who saved him. For the cat who taught him. He had been Cadet 13, the Troublemaker. Now he was Instructor Hyun, the teacher, and tomorrow he would help another troubled cadet find their way, just as he had been helped. The cat purred beside him, yellow eyes reflecting the light. Watching, always watching, and Hyun wouldn't have it any other way.